Welcome to Dr. Varsha Gaitonde's channel. In this video lecture, we shall discuss about plant intelligence. What is the criteria to call anybody as intelligent? If we take the entire globe, we consider human as the most intelligent thing in the world. So, if we consider the all living creatures, if we classify accordingly, human is the topmost intelligent personality, then comes the animals, then the lower organisms. But we talk very less about the plant intelligence. But here I am going to tell you how plants are equally or even more intelligent than human beings. In some aspects we cannot compare the plants with respect to animals because animals have the capacity to move. Humans have better way to communicate with each other. They know the language, they can move from one place to another. Because of this nature, today even he reached the space and established his things over there also. But plants are not like that. Until there is some intervention of other organisms, they cannot even propagate in a better way. So, first of all, we shall see what is the intelligence. It is the ability to solve problems, and plants are amazingly good in solving their problems. In the several decades, science has been saying that plants are capable of showing intelligent behavior and can communicate with each other. Intelligence is adaptively variable behavior within the lifetime of an individual. It is the exact definition is ability of plants to compute complex aspects of their environment. Plant intelligence remains loosely defined and it is practically synonymous to Darwinian fitness. Darwinian fitness क्या बोलता है? That is the ability of an individual to perform in its environment. Plant intelligence is a conceptual change that indicates plants will take dedicated active phenotypic decisions to improve their fitness and life cycle. Intelligence has evolved to improve survival and reproduction as well as the fitness behavior. So, if we talk about the plant intelligence, we call plants as the million brains. Million brains are referred to the neurology of plants, that is nothing but the roots. Plant intelligence is in the radical or root apex. Mancuso and colleagues recorded the same signals given off from this part of the plant as those from neurons in the animal brain. One root apex may not be able to do so much, but instead of having just one root, most plants have millions of individual roots, each with a single radical. Strength of this evolutionary choice is that it allows a plant to survive even after losing 90% or more of its biomass. As you might have seen, some plants, so a human being will go and cut the branches, all the branches of tree, say individual tree, but still it bears jackfruit or mango. Like that, you might have seen the main driver of evolution in plant was to survive and massive removal of parts of the body. Thus, plants are built of a huge number of basic modules that interact as nodes of a network. Without single organs or centralized function, plants may tolerate predation without losing functionality. According to Darwin, it is hardly an exaggeration to say that tip of the radical acts like brain of one of the lower animals. According to Mancuso, intelligence is the ability to solve problems and plants are amazingly good in solving this problem. This is the opinion of different scientists towards the plants. So, let us talk the most discussed thing or most curious thing. What is the difference between animal and plant intelligence? As I have already told, the intelligence point of human being or any animal is their brain. The human have one step ahead of that, the thinking capacity and the talking ability. Animals can also communicate in their own way by producing some sounds and giving the gestures to other animals. Okay, so animal intelligence, there are only one organ responsible for that, that is a brain, and with the help of central nervous system and heart, the system is entirely controlled. Whereas in plant, it is able to produce and transmit electrical signals with almost every cell of their body. In plants, there are about 5 senses, whereas 20 different senses were observed in plants. That means animals having 3 times less sensory organs than plants. Animals also grow and develop, but there are important qualitative differences. In plants, whole body can, in a smaller quantity, do the same what neurons do in the body. Much of the animal development and differentiation is confined to the uterus or egg, is minimal in the adult form, and as a consequence, it is often described as a unitary. But in case of plants, the propagation methods are different, that can be propagated vegetatively, sexually. Even hundreds of methods are there in order to propagate the plants. Even the apomixis, that asexual propagation and sexual propagation have different methods. These are the major differences between plant and animal intelligence. So now how we can diversify the plant's behavior in order to call them intelligent. If we take the consumption habit, as we know plants are the autotrophs, majority of the plants, they produce their own food and they are dependent on the sunlight for producing their food with the help of photosynthesis process. So if you see the sunflower plant, it turns its heads towards sun from day, means early morning to evening, it will change its direction towards the sun. That means it is a kind of response towards the sun's light. Similarly, there are different plants which consume the insects and they consume nutrients in that way, as well as plants have the ability to cope up with the environmental changes. They are shade responsive, touch responsive, sound responsive, and there are different researchers which are boosting these particular processes. Okay, so let's talk about the plant neurobiology. As I already discussed, neurobiology refers to the rooting system. It is the branch of plant science which deals with signaling and behavior of plants and parts or system responsible for it. Indian scientist J.C. Bose, credited for as the first person to research and talk about plant neurobiology. The neurobiology concerns only adaptive behavior of plants. Plant sensory and response system have been compared and found similar with humans and animals because plants are established at only one place and they can't move here and there unless they are on the water body, like if they are floating on the water body, means if the river is carrying them, that it can take from one place to another place. But if plant is well established in the soil condition, it cannot move on itself. Plants have electrical and chemical signaling system, may possess memory and exhibit brainy behavior in the absence of brain. The electrical signals activate biosynthesis of jasmonate, and the genes involved in transmission of these signals were identified in Arabidopsis thaliana. The internal signals in plants moves mainly through the vascular system. It includes mRNA, siRNA, protein, peptides, hormones, mineral signals. Information is transmitted through action potential that result in cytosolic calcium waves, which induces the activation of stress genes. However, this branch not gained much progress as there is no evidence for structures like neurons, synapses, or brain, but have plasmodesmata as analogous structure for cell to cell transport or neurotransmitter like compounds. Let us see how human behavior is different from other organisms. Human can judge, or he can monitor, or he can make his own events: signal passing, signal perception by sensory organs, signal transmission by neurons and neurotransmitter, signal processing and decision making, then signal to body organs for reaction. All these things are controlled by human beings. Like the seasonal changes can be addressed very easily. If there is so much sunlight, hot, means he can take some precautionary measures like keeping himself cool by consuming lot of water or cool drinks like that. And if it is very hot, means he can protect himself from sweaters, and if it is rainy, he can cover with this one umbrella as well as some raincoats. Just like that, human can modify his conditions according to the changing scenario or different environmental conditions. So, different questions may be boosting the plant intelligence. First one, can plants keep memory? Definitely, because once we touch the touch me not plant, then what will happen? They have the sensory things, they'll just shrink themselves, or the leaves will close towards the center. Memory is the ability to recover information about past events or knowledge. Plants that experience herbivory or disease will become primed and show quick response. Systemic acquired resistance triggered by localized pathogens, states indicating primary signals like volatile organic compounds which can prime the jasmonic acid. Then cross protection is also observed in plants, which is practiced in citrus and papaya against viral diseases. That means for biotic and abiotic stresses, the memory is basically observed in plants, which can be, that means the secondary metabolites or the gene expression are cascaded, or they are programmed in order to remember those things for a longer time. Evidence for plant memory given in a pictorial form. Here in the first picture, here you can see whenever the plant is exposed to dry condition or to hot and hot condition, then what will happen? Plant will dehydrate itself. When we rehydrate or when rains commence, again it will be in a good better position. When you expose the same plant to again to the stress condition, what will happen? We will find the hardiness in that plant. That means plant is remembering that previously it has exposed to the hot climatic conditions. Here this condition is basically predicted or concluded based on the epigenetic memory for stress response and adaptiveness in the plants. Next question, do plants smell? Yes, definitely. Plants emit volatile organic compounds, which are organic chemical molecules under threats of danger, and also use them notably to attract pollinators and ensure reproduction. Nearby plants smell and recognize volatile organic compounds produced by neighboring plants as signal for switching on their specific metabolic activity and to prepare their own defense weapons in response. See here, there are some of the oxylifin family and terpenoids which are responsible for different smells like isoprene, A beta farnesene, then alloocimene, beta ocimene, and other chemical compounds like ethylene, methyl salicylate. Among oxylipin family, the compounds like green leaf volatiles, which include Z3-hexanyl, E2-hexanyl, methyl jasmonate, cis jasmonate, etc. Here is one study to consider the involvement of volatile organic compounds in the particular process of smelling. Here, the objective is to study whether VOCs work as a single component or a specific blend, and at which concentration VOCs elicit insects and pathogen defense in undamaged plants. In the first picture, a danger signals emitted by the same family member provide warning that a species-specific enemy is nearby. Plants prepare specific secondary metabolites for defense against the herbivory. Herbivory means the defense against the herbivory is nothing but eating the herbivores. Okay, to prevent against that, plant will produce the secondary metabolites. In the second picture, here you may see that the plants that receive common VOCs. Here the plants, in the first picture, the plants are secreting or releasing the VOCs to the environment, whereas in the second picture the VOCs are received by certain plants that acts as information that might elicit a general defense response to prevent damage from broad range of herbivory. Now, how the plants communicate between themselves and among themselves. Here there is one plant which is chrysanthemum. Here, wound-induced VOCs are given. Because of that, biosynthesis of pyrethrin in undamaged plants and blending VOCs and target broad range of plant species. Within family, what will happen? Mechanism wounding in older leaves, then warning signals are produced, increasing pyrethrin content in younger intact leaves. Means among species what will happen, or among plants what will happen, broad range of plants means number of plants will produce the volatile compounds or VOCs, whereas within family what will happen, the younger shoot will produce the pyrethrin or the VOC. So in Ziamese, the GLVs induce the accumulation of jasmonic acid, in turn release the greater amount of VOCs. In Arabidopsis, application of cis jasmine enhance the synthesis of secondary metabolites and attraction of neural enemies. Then in plants that can create specific messages for communication by changing the concentration of volatile components and their blend ratios. Blend ratio determines the specificity of VOCs, mediated communication for shorter distances and at a narrow concentration range. The systemic response includes specific, quick and fast, or involving plant hormones. That systemic acquired resistance may be for biotic stress or abiotic stress. In this picture, we shall see how the systemic response is transmitted inside the entire family. As we see the plant system, the nucleus is the controlling cell, controlling thing in a particular cell. As the plant is made up of millions of or billions of cells, and nucleus is the controlling element of that particular cell. So whenever the stress is induced on a particular cell, what will happen? The signals will be transmitted to the nucleus. From there, DNA, RNA, and those will start their activity, and finally the proteins and volatile compounds will be released from that in order to respond to the stress conditions. Similarly, likewise here, the wounding stress is imposed where the hydraulic wave is produced inside the leaf or the cell system, where the mechanosensors are given signals, then calcium wave, reactive oxygen species wave, and electric wave will be circulating inside. Here the respiratory burst oxidase homologue D is a specific compound along with the 2-poro channel 1 and glutamate link receptor. These all act as the compounds for transmitting the signals inside as well as systematically to the outside environment, and because of these activities the systemic response is produced from the plant. In order to confirm the Cuscuta seedling response, this was tested to host volatile extracted from filtered air and then released from rubber septa in the absence of any other host, and observed similar response to the that is exhibited toward an intact tomato seedling. That means different studies on different species is discussed here. There is one more study where leaf mimicry through VOC recognition. Here how the leaf mimicry is done. In the picture you may see one tendril or one vine is there which is holding a branch of particular tree completely, and what it is doing, it is just trying to mimic the main branch of that particular plant on which it is acting as a parasite. Okay, Bocquelia trifoliata, a vine of temperate rainforest, camouflage itself, changes its size, shape, color, orientation, and resembles host foliage to reduce herbivory. VOC receptors are present to sense particular group of VOCs. Some vines simply avoid trees of smooth trunks to enable climbing based on VOCs. Next question is, do plants respond to sound? Yes, definitely there are certain studies which were conducted in order to sense the response of plants towards the sound. So they imposed the sound effect on plants based on the different cultures, like maybe western music or some culture or some traditional music, like that different types of musics were imposed and different responses were found. So here one more scientific research is conducted. Advances in the effects of sound waves on plants. In this, sound waves were given towards the rooting system, and they found that roots were heading towards the direction where the sound was coming. The 220 hertz sound was given to this particular uh, experiment, or this particular treatment we may say. Using sound waves technology, it can enhance the plant immune system. This is one more study. When the sound wave energy reaches the leaf, part of sound energy vibrates the leaf. Sound stimulation caused leaf stomata to open so that the plant will be able to increase its uptake of spray fertilizer and dew, especially in the morning. The sound stimulation is also very efficient to get at getting the herbicides into the plant. Mature weeds can be sprayed with 50% less herbicide and biocide, avoid many problems associated with the environmental pollution and the economic costs of chemical fertilizers and herbicides. Next question. Do plants communicate? Definitely they communicate when they undergo certain stress, when there is certain lacunas in the plant, like maybe the nutrient deficiency or and all, they definitely communicate with each other. Here the question comes, why to study the plant to plant communication? This is to understand the plant to plant interaction that helps to restore the ecosystem that is damaged by human interference. As you might have seen, there may be different keystone species or keystone trees like banyan tree, which gives a shelter to small plants, small shrubs, which survive based on the shading or different kinds of behavior of that particular plant. Likewise, the communication of plants can be helpful to study the ecosystem as well as to cope up with the climate change. This is very important. The communication of plant to plant is very important in order to restore the ecosystem damage as well as climate change, to tackle the climate change. Studies in this field will help to decide compatible crop plants, thus helping in crop management. This is how the plant communication not only with the other plant but also with the environment stimulus as well as other organisms which are dependent directly and indirectly on the plant ecosystem. Next, running away is not an option for plants. Plants are exposed to various stress factors like disease, injury, herbivory, extreme heat, or cold. They lack rapid movement to escape from the threat, so they have developed strategies to protect their neighbors by communicating them about their threat. Next is shade avoidance syndrome. Some plants are not at all tolerant to shade condition. For example, many of our field crops cannot withstand the shade. If you are planting some revenue trees or any other trees on the bunds, means that particular area you won't find proper germination or something like that, or stunted growth and all those conditions. It is because they hate the shade condition. Whenever the enough sunshine is available, they'll grow luxuriously, but whenever not, there will be stunted and poor growth as well as yield conditions are observed. That is also one of the response of plants. Shade avoidance syndrome is a set of responses that plant displays when they are subjected to the shade of another plant. It often includes elongation, altered flowering time, increased apical dominance, and altered partitioning of the resources. If you take the forest ecosystem, there the shading is a common effect. So what plants will do, they'll start competing each other, or they'll change their direction towards this where they can get the sunshine. This process involves plant to plant communication in order to identify whether the neighboring plant is a friend or competitor. Next is below ground plant to plant communication by common mycorrhizal network. Mycorrhizal fungi forms hyphal connection between the root system of two or more host plants, forming common mycorrhizal network, commonly called as CMNs, popularly referred as World Wide Web. Like World Wide Web, the CMNs are found below the plant root system. At present, the nature of the signals and the degree of plant and fungal control of their delivery are unknown. Plants communicate mainly in two ways, one is above ground and one is below ground. Plant use the volatile organic compounds as their media to interact with each other and other organisms like pest pollinators and beneficial insects above ground. If we take the below ground, it is common mycorrhizal network. The common mycorrhizal network may be able to act as channels for transferring the mineral nutrients between the plants, okay. Like nitrogen, phosphorus, defense signals, and allelochemicals between connected plants. Fungal networks trigger the production of defense related chemicals to make immune system responses quicker and more efficient. Here, one study is there based on which the plant communication through common mycorrhizal network means how the above ground vivoces will help in communicating above ground and how mycorrhizal fungi is transmitting the signals below ground. This is how the signals are transmitted, and because of these two compounds, one is mycorrhizal fungi and one more is vivoces, how plant can survive in a given micro ecosystem. That is the purpose of this particular study. The CMN based plant to plant signal could be a part of integrated pest management toolkit in the fight against agriculture pests and diseases. Clearly, for crops to self protect in this way, the CMNs need to connect the individual crop plants. Since deep plowing and other forms of tilling destroys the fungal networks, this type of pest control could operate only in minimal till and no till systems including perennials. That means zero tilling is the best option for the CMNs. Priming inducing signals provide broad spectrum of the plant protection. Beta aminobutyric acid or BABA, which is a plant xenobiotic compound, can induce resistance in many different plant species against exceptionally wide spectrum of biotic stress or abiotic stress. BABA is active in relatively low concentration. These characteristics suggest that BABA either mimics an endogenous plant signaling compound that regulates multiple immune responses simultaneously. The last question is, actually plants do maths? Yes, definitely, because in Arabidopsis, one research published in Nature on Arabidopsis which suggests that plants have a built-in capacity to perform complex calculations to maintain food reserves at nights until the sun reappears. As you know, the photosynthesis process only takes place during the daytime in majority or 90% of the plant species. So during night hours it should consume the food, not the production of food. So during that the balance between production and consumption is circulating between day and night. That is the maths which is performed by the plants. During the night, mechanism inside the leaf measures the size of starch store and estimate the length of the time in starvation. Information about time comes from the internal clock similar to the human body clock. Therefore, plants divide the leaf of starch stores by the number of hours until dawn. Dawn means the late evening periods to determine the proper rate of consumption. Last is the epigenetic role in plant intelligence. As you know, the epigenetic role means there won't be any change at the DNA level, but there will be change in the expression level because of the changes in the coding pattern. So, epigenetics is one major way that past experiences stay with us, such as tolerance for cold climate and all those things, as I have already discussed this. There, here, the DNA is wrapped around protein called histones, and events can change certain histones, which in turn affect which genes turn on, turn off. The plants remember things like bad weather and attacked by insects. Therefore, they not only remember the environmental stress, but they can pass the memories because epigenetic changes are heritable. Their seeds come prepared for the problems their parents encounter. That means plant not only communicate the problems to different plants, but due to its epigenetic processes it gives better life to their children or their progeny. To summarize this, evidences to call plants as intelligent. The different evidences I have listed here. One, as we discussed so far, that plants can smell, communicate, they are responsive to sound, they prefer the maths, They prefer or they cope up with the biotic and abiotic stress, reproduce sexually, asexually. They have the specific character like pollen identification. Whenever the pollen is coming from either through wind, birds, or waterway, they can identify their own kind of pollens. Varied pollination habit and genetic constitution, sense to grow under extremities, undergoing dormancy and seasonal inactivity, hormonal response and response to external stimuli, seasonal response, distribution of compounds in different parts of it, maintaining diversity, coping with ecosystem and climate change. Progenies are alike to parents, adjustment to leaf size and plant structure, even color and all those things, response to sunshine and gravitational stimulus, totipedency and phenotypic plasticity, pneumatophores, competition, different behaviors like mutualism, commensalism, and all, symbiosis and allelopathic effect, sensing and communication. So, to conclude this, the whatever the mechanisms we observed so far are also observed in bacteria, fungal hyphae, sponges, also despite of being devoid of brain, nervous system, capable of sensing their immediate environment and responding accordingly. Plant phenotype is constructed to benefit the whole organism using the environmental signals that are internally assessed against current and previous experiments. So, we must stop regarding plants as immobile furniture of our world, as well as plants are much more complex than many understood so far. They can process information and make decisions all in the absence of brains. This is the major conclusion. So, friends, thanks for watching. If you have any doubt, you can put it under the comment section. If you have any suggestions, also, you are most welcome. Keep on commenting, liking, subscribing. Thanks once again.